Hey guys, I'm here with Suraj Vyas, and we're going to talk about starting your own law firm.
Thanks for having me, Christian.
Yep, no worries, man. So why don't we start off? Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Sure thing. So my name is Suraj Vyas. I am a attorney based in Maryland and DC. Operate my own firm right out of Woodstock, Maryland. Primarily I'm handling patents, construction, and contracts.
Okay, awesome. So when did you start your practice?
So I started it straight out of law school.
Okay.
Definitely just dove straight in.
All right. It's
You know,
risky, man.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely had a couple people saying, "Are you sure you want to do this?" right out of the gate, and I'm like, "Yeah, guys, don't worry, I got this. I got this."
Okay, because conventional wisdom, right? Or at least what I see, almost everybody say, right, is like don't do that. Like make sure you have a few years of practice under someone. So what made you feel confident enough to start your own?
So I will say I did have a safety net in that prior to this, I did a lot of internships with law firms, and so I had connections built up where people liked what I did, and so they kind of I had a little bit of backing there. I was working as kind of an in-house counsel while I was still, it was basically like a 1 week period after, so I passed the bar in November, of course, after graduating, and then until March, I would say, I was working as that in-house counsel kind of role at a small engineering company. And so I had someone else approach me about a construction problem that they were having, and I knew them from a prior internship. And they were like, "Hey, can you handle this work for me?" And I said, "I can't because I'm in-house counsel at this other place." And they were like, "Look, this is a pretty big job. I like you. If you're willing to go in, we'll make it work." And I was like, all right, maybe that's just the push I needed. And so that one client, that honestly pushed me over the edge. It was a sizable case, and so it was something I knew were like, all right, I have some footing. You know?
Yeah. And dude, it's amazing when like a client comes up to you and like kind of, I can't imagine that. Like just having them come up to you and go like, "Hey man, you should just like work with me."
It's definitely a good feeling. I think that's the best part. It's like when you know you did good work, I feel like, I will say I'm always looking for that. Like I love when a client comes back and says like, "You actually helped me," and I know on the PI side of things, you probably get that a little bit more. When you're dealing with corporations and stuff, it's a little bit more faceless depending on who you're working with. So sometimes they're just kind of like, "All right, here's the check. Good job. We'll see you next time if we need you."
Gotcha. So tell us a little bit more about what exactly you do.
Sure. So, like I said, it's mainly three areas: patents, construction, and contracts. So, like in the patent world, I do patent prosecution. It does involve trademarks and copyright, kind of in that whole IP umbrella, but the goal is really pushing that patent law angle. I have a background in engineering, and so that is definitely a requirement to actually get barred.
Awesome, and so you can actually say you're an expert, right? Isn't that the...
I can, yeah. So I can say I specialize in patent law.
That's right.
Yeah, we can finally use that term.
Right.
We have a lot of restrictions with the advertising over here, but yeah, that's one I can finally say.
What do you mean by prosecuting patents? What does that mean?
So basically filing the actual patent application to get that provisional or non-provisional utility patent, or design patent or plant patent, whatever it is, Okay.
Are there any cool inventions that you can talk about that maybe have already been approved?
So the patent process very slow. I actually didn't start it until 2020. Is when I opened like the patent law branch of the firm.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot talk about any inventions right now. But we do have a few in the works.
Okay.
We have healthcare ones. We have kind of mechanical engineering-esque ones. I'd say those are the two sectors we're in the most.
Okay. It's awesome, dude.
Yeah, definitely. It's
And
always
then,
fun.
And then construction and contracts, right?
Yep.
So when you're talking about construction law, do you mean like litigation between two construction companies?
So it started off that way, and nowadays construction's way heavily into the arbitration realm rather than traditional litigation.
Okay.
So I work with a lot of bigger commercial contractors, both in America as well as abroad.
Okay.
And so they traditionally have arbitration clauses, so I'm way more in arbitration than I'm in litigation. I'm barely in the courthouse nowadays.
Gotcha. What kind of disputes are we talking about?
So a lot of them are liquidated damages or delay damages. Ever since COVID too, everything's been delayed. Labor and material prices are skyrocketing, so lots of work in that industry right now.
Gotcha. Working internationally, how does that work, man? So first of all, where is this? What other countries are you working?
A lot of the work's coming actually from India. There's a little bit in the UAE,
Okay,
So,
wow.
yeah, working on Singapore as well. Just one client there, but we have Singapore as well. So how it happened is I would actually spend about 3 months of every year from like my whole life basically in India. So just visiting grandparents and stuff.
Mhm.
As I entered high school, I would say I started working under my grandfather a little bit, kind of following him around. So he was actually a construction lawyer in India,
Okay.
and got a lot of experience through him. Made some connections. It continued through college, and then even in law school. You know, I wasn't going for 3 months, of course, at that time every year, but whenever I made the trip out there, I would help him out. You know, kind of hone in on a little bit of the cases and see if I could add some value.
Gotcha. Okay, so how does it work to actually, first of all, before I even ask that question, it's so awesome that like, I mean, you're young, dude, and you're like in international construction. Like this is really cool stuff. So congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Secondly, how does this even work? Because like I need to be barred in another state to practice there. How are you practicing in India, UAE? Like, how does this even work?
Yeah, so what it is arbitration is way more flexible since you're not actually practicing law in those jurisdictions.
Okay.
What I do is I team up with another attorney or solicitor or whatever it is depending on the country,
Okay.
and kind of work with their systems. So
Gotcha.
it might not entirely be me on many cases, but you know I'll definitely add my flair to it.
Okay. Dude, that's amazing. So regarding contracts, is it just contract disputes like here, mostly here in the US?
Yeah, so that one's actually a lot more like general counsel work, I would say. That's what it's evolved into. I guess I'm still saying patents, construction contracts, because those are like quick 3 things you can tell people.
Okay.
But what it does boil down to nowadays is it's a lot of general counseling work for corporations in Maryland and DC, I would say.
Okay.
So, you know, whether it's like a lease agreement or an employment agreement or like an NDA, all sorts of random things.
Amazing.
I'm out there drafting them, negotiating them, kind of wheeling and dealing, making the deals. You
Okay.
know?
That's what's up, man. So, all right, let's talk about this transition to solo practice. You're a solo practitioner, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So, it's just you. I'm assuming you have some staff.
I actually don't know.
You don't have
true
so
solo,
all you,
no assistants.
all you.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I will say from time to time I've hired contract attorneys,
Okay.
so like 1099 contractors.
Okay.
So we've definitely done that. You know, when it gets super busy, but no, true solo for the most part.
Dude, that's amazing. Let's talk about that transition.
Sure.
Right. So like, just give us an insight into how that happened.
Yeah. So, like I said, I had that one big client, so that was definitely footing the bill. I guess I would say for the most part early on. The transition, though, I mean, it was relatively seamless. I left the general counsel role on pretty good terms, or the in-house counsel role, I should say. They actually came back to me, I think it was about maybe a year and a half later, and they were like, hey, we're probably not going to have an in-house counsel anymore if you want to just kind of take on that work as well.
Okay.
You know, that helped out as well. But transition was very smooth. You know, I kind of had that 1 week to get everything up and running, so I'm running the, you know, SunTrust at the time, setting up the IOLTA accounts, everything like that.
Okay. And IOLTA, that's our, what's it called? Our trust account.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So, how did you figure out what you needed to do to start, you know, law school?
Honestly, I just Googled it. I think I want to say like the resources I used were like, I want to say My Shingle was one of them. That sounds like it was it.
Yeah.
Man, I wish I knew the names of the websites off the top of my head, but yeah, it's the usual suspects you would think if you just type in how to start a law firm,
Right.
2018 or whatever it was at the time.
Did you read Thunberg's book?
I
I think it's How to Start and Build a Law Firm. I'm sure I have it somewhere.
don't know if I did actually. I'm not sure.
That's like the Bible.
All right, man, I'm missing out.
No, I think you got it down. I think you're
know.
good.
Could have been way better off, maybe.
No, that's great. So if you, I'm sure there are people that might watch this and like, you know, folks in law school that are thinking, hey, I want to start my own law firm one day.
Right.
So like, what are, you know, a few, I know maybe off the top of your head, but like some checklist items that maybe you can just speak on.
Yeah, sure. I would say first, just be really sure you want to do it. I will say the pros definitely outweigh the cons, and there are some pretty egregious cons, as I'm sure you're aware of, you know, when you own your own firm. But I don't think it's necessarily the right idea for everyone to do straight out of law school. I think I did get lucky. I think there was a huge involvement of luck in my thing where I have this client. You know, I don't think if you have that, it's maybe necessarily the best idea. I mean, it's tough to financially support yourself straight out of law school, especially because, I mean, you learn things, but you don't learn like the actual day-to-day processes. Even just kind of walking into court, like, what are you supposed to say?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think, were you on moot court?
I was.
Yeah, so I mean, we had some of the basics of like appellate, but like, you're not starting off at that level right out of law school.
Right.
So.
Okay, so you said that there were serious cons. Let's talk about the pros and the cons for a second of owning your own. Starting maybe, let's just go to owning your own law firm. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the pros? I think those are easy.
Flexibility, the time. For the most part. I mean, you still have to, you know, adhere to certain schedules the judges set from time to time. Since I'm doing mostly arbitration work that is more flexible, they'll ask you, you know, when do you want to hold the hearing and things like that. So that's even better. But flexibility, oh man, I cannot imagine ever working for a traditional law firm model ever.
Okay.
It's just meeting the billable hour requirements, you know, coming in even 9 to 5 or whatever schedule it is, 9 to 9, you know. I don't know. It's just, I can do whatever I want when I want. That's the biggest pro.
Okay. Yeah, no, I would fully agree with you there. What about some cons?
Cons, I mean, it's just, you have to worry about everything. Like, especially as a true solo, everything's on you. And I don't just mean like from the legal perspective, because that's the part I would think both of us like the most, is the actual law and lawyering part of it. But you have to think about marketing, you got to think about accounting, you have to think about admin work. It's just, it's all on you at the end of the day. And so definitely gets grueling sometimes, but again, you set your own schedule, so look, as long as you're hitting your goals,
right.
it's all good.
So most of your work, I'm assuming you are billing or doing flat fee.
Yeah, so I do mostly hourly billing and flat fees. I don't do too many contingency cases.
Okay.
I don't think I have any active contingency cases anymore. I'm kind of walked away from that model, shifted that towards a flat fee business, and then the hourly is still going. Yep.
Okay. So when you're billing hourly, I mean, it's kind of the same thing that, like, you know, like you said, the traditional law firm, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, how do you have special software? How do, I guess for people that don't know how hourly billing and billable hours work generally, like, can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So how I have it structured is I actually have it pretty flexible in terms of I don't want to screw over my client.
Okay.
So what I'll do is I'm very strict on when I start and stop times. And it's really as simple as just keeping an eye on my clock. It's like a stopwatch, you know, on just a Windows computer. And then having a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet open where I have like some crazy formula set up that'll calculate all the times and whatnot. But I'm billing every 6 minutes.
Okay.
And then for, I think, every one of my clients now, I will actually round down that 6 minute increment level. So if something takes me 15 minutes, I'm only going to bill them 12. I'm not going to round it up to 18. Definitely not up to the full hour.
Yeah, yeah.
So I do that just because, one, sake of transparency, I want them to know, like, hey, if I do screw up, which I'm very strict, so I mean, I don't think I've screwed up. Maybe I'm being a little arrogant there.
I'm sure you haven't, yeah.
But yeah, if I do screw up, I want them to know, hey, I'm always rounding you guys down. So like, I don't want you to think you're ever getting overbilled or anything like that.
That's awesome. So no 0.5 for an email?
No, nothing. Yeah, and I don't do anything like that where it's like, oh, I'm sending an email 0.5 or 0.3. No, it's if the email took me 5 minutes, and I don't bill anything at all. If it's under that 6 minute mark, I won't even say no, it's waived.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I would say I wish, or I hope that's a common practice, but
I think it's also something where it's a luxury you can have depending on the field that you're in. So, I mean, I don't know about other practice areas, but I know, like, if you're doing a lot of corporate arbitration work, it's like, okay, like $40 here and there might not make the biggest deal, 40 or $50, you know, so.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. So, would you close down your practice and join another firm?
Never.
What would they have to offer you, man? Everybody's got a number, man.
Everyone's got a number, right? Yeah, I don't know. Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying tell us what that number is, but,
Yeah.
you know, I'm just saying, like, has that thought, and I'm sorry, how long have you been doing it? When did you pass the bar and start your own?
So I passed the bar in November, right out of law school, and then I started my own firm in March of 2018.
2018, so March of 2018.
Yep, so
Okay.
graduated law school 2017 and then started the firm 2018.
Okay. So, was there ever like a moment, maybe in like your first year, where you were like, crap, maybe I should.
Yeah, so I mean, when I first got out of law school, obviously I am interviewing at random law firms,
Mhm.
and I got offers, and I think it was when I think it was a real estate law firm. They did something like closings. They sent me an offer at one point, and it was that same day when that client approached me. I'm like, they're offering a decent salary, but I think I'm just gonna take the jump because when else am I gonna have this chance? You know.
Yeah.
So I think you got to be willing to take that risk. But again, I'm a bit of a guy who likes to be cautious. So like, don't just jump out there without any floaties on. You know, make sure you have something lined up.
Not like something that I did.
You're doing well for yourself.
It's working. Okay, so let's talk more about I guess the ins and outs of running a law practice, right?
Yeah. Sure.
And so I'm assuming a lot of this was Googled, and also you learned through trial and error, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and so also some podcasts. I listen to The Law Entrepreneur a lot.
Okay.
And so I was taking avid notes on that every episode. I'm like, all right, this is what I gotta do. Some tidbits even in law school, I guess. You know, we had professors who, oh man, I wish I remembered who it was. It might have been Professor Valerio, contracts professor at UB.
Okay.
She mentioned one day that, you know, when you guys get out in the real world, there's a website called Avo. Make sure you claim a profile on that. And I definitely remember writing that in my notebook at the time and like setting a calendar reminder for myself like 5 years in the future or whatever it was, 3 years. Being like, I gotta claim that Avo profile. I don't know what it does, but someone told me at some point, and like, I'm not advertising on there at all, but like, it's up there, and so people have definitely found me through that.
Okay. That's great. Nobody has found me through Avo.
Really? All right.
Then again, I don't think
Lots of spam coming.
You're
as
right,
well.
right,
Yeah.
right.
I think you just gotta keep your eyes and ears open for when you hear what you think could be a tip and just write it down, and then you never know when you might need it. I mean, maybe you start a firm 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. I mean, if you have this kind of running list of notes, I think at some point they'll come in handy if this is really something you want to pursue.
Fair. So how did you get to the number that you charge folks, right? Whether it's your hourly billing number, or if it's your flat fee. You know?
Yeah. So for hourly, what it was is since I did work with other attorneys, and you can't share numbers with one another because price fixing and things, but you get a feel for what they're charging, and when you do cases. So what I first did actually is when I took on MVLS cases, Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service.
Yeah.
And so in those cases, the other attorneys would ask for attorney's fees.
Okay.
Right, and so they have to kind of submit a list of how much they're charging for this type of work. So honestly, that helped a ton because I'm like, oh, you guys are charging this much. You have this many years of experience based on, again, just a Google search. So I'm going to guess I can charge probably this much since I don't have as much experience.
Okay.
And that's how I arrived at my first hourly fee. And then kind of as I've transitioned into flat fees a lot so since 2018, since I've been doing hourly billing, I've been keeping a record of, this is how many hours it worked. It cost about this much for the client at the end of the day. So I can kind of just, guess at that point, like, okay, I have the experience in this realm. That's probably what the flat fee is going to be.
Gotcha.
I'll keep it consistent for, whoever the client is. But the thing is, sometimes you have those clients who they don't need a lot of hand holding, and then sometimes you have the ones that really need a lot of hand holding. And so the flat fee doesn't always work out, but in the end, it always kind of shakes out to be even because you have those easy cases and those hard ones. So
yeah, and I'm sure you can. I don't know. It's kind of cool. You can get very creative with, as long as it's ethical, right? You can get very creative with your fee structure.
Definitely, yeah.
Fee plan. So I know attorneys that do part flat fee and then part contingency. Like it's all mixed up.
I think criminal law does that a lot. If I'm remembering right, or not contingency. Sorry,
yeah.
No. They do a flat fee and then I think they do hourly after or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I know some employment lawyers that do what I just
said.
Yeah. So there's also the Lodestar methods. I think that's a case. That's like a federal case, which kind of like sets the rate. So that's been helpful for me at least.
Yeah.
Talk about MVLS. So when MVLS is a great organization.
Definitely.
They do a lot of good work in all across Maryland, to be honest. So you took some cases as a volunteer attorney?
Yeah, when I first started out, I was like that seems like a great way to get experience. They kind of hook you up with a mentor right out of the gate too, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing when I walk into this courtroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great resource. MBLS, they definitely hold the hands of the new attorneys and kind of teach you the ropes.
They do.
Another place was Disability Rights Maryland, very similar pro bono organization they have. Same system, they'll definitely hold your hand and kind of walk you through the process. So
Gotcha.
earlier on, I learned how to do like IEPs through there, individualized education plans
Okay.
for children with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, this is a super unique area of the law. I never had any exposure to this. I feel like I got the hang of it. I'm not taking on too many of those cases. I mean, it's not my area of expertise for sure, but like I feel like I could figure some stuff out. If anyone needs any help, they call me. I'll be like, I'll get you the basics.
So, I guess when you started, right? Like, you might have had, very. I don't think MVLS has, many construction law, right?
No,
right?
Not so much.
So no IP. Like, so you were very broad. You were kind of a generalist, and
yeah. So yeah, early on when I opened my doors, I was taking almost anything that walked through the door. I'm like, yeah, whatever case it is, I'll figure it out, or I'll find like a mentor who can kind of guide me along the way, and I'll take on that case. I mean, random landlord-tenant stuff, which I don't do at all right now, but man, that was a whole different area. Nothing like construction or patents or anything.
I started with that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting.
I think that's a good starting point though, because you really get right into the heart of like just a court system with landlord-tenant, and it gets a little vicious too.
Very, yeah. Especially in places like Baltimore City.
Yep, definitely.
So, when did you begin to kind of narrow your focus? How long did it take you? How long into your practice did you finally start like saying, okay, I don't need, to take everything that comes in the door?
Honestly, I can't say 100% that I've still done that.
Okay.
I think there's still, like, I just had a divorce case still last year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so it's something where if I just feel like this client's a good fit, or I have had a couple clients, and I will say, just because I have an Indian background, there's a lot of Indian clients that feel more comfortable approaching me, especially for family law cases, I've noticed.
Interesting.
Like, this is not what I do.
Right.
But I've done enough of them where, like, I can handle simple divorce, because, especially uncontested ones, honestly, it's more like a contracts case at that point, because you just have a separation agreement, you kind of just roll with it, so it's fairly straightforward. But yeah, when did I know? I guess every year I kind of narrowed it more and more, where I'm like, okay, first I'll take anything that comes through the door. Then I'm like, all right, maybe I'm gonna cut out crim and like PI.
Oh my God, you did crim as well?
I did expungements, so I didn't do anything where I'm really good, but it was just expungement work. I haven't done one of those since probably 2019 now. But yeah, I took those out, and then next year I think I was like, I'm not really feeling too much on like the constitutional law stuff, like free speech law, things like that.
Hold on. You can't just glance over that.
Time, place, manner restrictions.
Are you serious?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, talk about that. Like, what was happening there?
Honestly, it was so. I think it was 2018 or it must have been 2019. It was another MBLS case, and it was just. They're kind of like, all right, we're going to hand you these cases. If you think one sounds interesting, just pick it, and we'll kind of, walk you through it for the most part. And so it was a very basic case of just a woman shouting something on a sidewalk. It was very just generic. Yeah, it wasn't anything sexy or spicy, unfortunately. I think the case just dropped. I don't remember even working on it too much, to be honest with you. Probably a few days, and then it just kind of ended.
So this is, I guess she was arrested for this, or what happened?
No, so it was at a private business, and she was doing it on the sidewalk right outside the private business, and so the business sued her because they were like, this is technically our property, and she's like, no, it's a public sidewalk.
Wow.
But the case, it just got dropped. I honestly,
it didn't go all the way to the Supreme Court.
It did not go to the Supreme Court. No, you won't be hearing about it. But yeah, that was another one where I'm like, what am I doing with this? This is not anything I know about. I think it's definitely an interesting area. I think I'm just more drawn to the ones I picked. So, like I said, background in engineering, so construction and patents, like that's way more closer to me. Even contracts.
Does intellectual property and stuff, does that require like a separate bar or like a separate test in order to?
Yeah, so trademark and copyright does not, neither does trade secrets, but specifically for patent law, anyone can litigate a patent. Like if there's a patent litigation case, that's fine. But if you want to prosecute a patent, meaning you want to actually file for a patent on behalf of a client,
Yeah.
you do have to pass the patent bar.
Okay.
And that had other requirements where you can only take that bar exam if you have a background in some hard science. I think it has to be engineering, biology, chem, or physics.
Interesting. Yeah, tell us more about the patent bar, man. What is that?
Oh man, that was a rough time. I don't even know what to say about that. It was like the Maryland bar exam, except much worse, if you could believe it. It was just nonstop studying. Man, when I took that, it was in 2020, so full swing of the pandemic, and I was kind of just sitting at home for a while, because if you recall earlier on, the courts were closed back in like March and April.
Yeah.
So I didn't have much to do, and I'm like, you know what? Let me go ahead and take the FE, which is the Fundamentals of Engineering exam.
Okay.
Just to show that I have the engineering knowledge, because I knew I had it, but I'm like, I don't have any piece of paper that actually says I have it. I feel like I should have that so I can show prospective clients, like, hey, I actually know what I'm talking about when it comes to construction law.
Okay.
So I got that done, and then I was like, because I knew the end goal was the patent, and so I was like, all right, this is the time, 2020. Things are kind of slow right now, and 2021, they're probably going to ramp up because again, all these construction delays. So let's use this free time I have and actually make it productive, so I can actually like improve my law firm somewhat.
Yeah, smart. Okay, so obviously you're doing it for construction and engineering, but you mentioned like you can be in a hard science, right outside of that. So how does this whole patent bar system work? Like, is FE, Fundamentals of Engineering, is that like the exam that you need to take, or I'm assuming it's for the field, right?
Yeah. So actually, what it is if you have a Bachelor's of Science degree in one of their traditional, I guess, hard sciences, you don't need to take an FE.
Okay.
When I was at UMBC for undergrad, I actually did a degree in Water Resources Management and Policy.
Okay.
So it's kind of a blend between engineering and law, specifically hydroengineering.
Okay. Really cool. All right.
Yeah. So unfortunately, though, that doesn't really fly with the patent bar, because they're like, is that even an engineering degree? It doesn't have the word engineering in it. And I'm like, I should have thought that through when I did the degree. So I was like, all right, well, I got to prove to you guys I know what I'm talking about. And so that's why one of the other options they have on their little like 3-prong test or whatever is, well, if you pass the FE, you're good. We'll call you an engineer, and then you can take the patent bar.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so, and then they also have an equivalent of an FE for like another hard science?
I'm not too sure if they do, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think it might just be the FE for engineering, but I don't know if they do for physics or chem or anything like that.
Okay.
I think you would just have to have the bachelor's in those fields.
Fair. And then obviously this is a national test.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
So I could do a patent for all 50 states. I'm not, restricted by Maryland or DC. That's definitely the cool angle about patent law. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So, do you have an office?
So I don't actually. Yeah, this is something the pandemic really helped out with. But no, I'm operating out of my home.
Okay.
No one ever wants to see me because, like I said, patents. No one wants to see you, because especially if it's all over the country.
Right.
Construction. I mean, they're all relatively big contractors, so they don't really have time to come from their office down to your office and see you. So I mean, they love Microsoft Teams.
Okay.
Yeah, they definitely don't want to come to the office. And then when I'm doing general counseling work, like contracts, they don't want to come in either. I mean, it's all these corporations.
Fair enough. So you're just using technology. I mean, even for these arbitrations, are you?
Yeah, almost all the arbitrations are virtual. If they're not, we'll go to some conference room usually that the arbitrator picks out. So it's nothing where I need to worry about it.
That's awesome, and that saves a bunch of money on overhead. That saves.
Definitely.
Yeah. And also, I guess it's comfortable, man. Like you just have.
Oh yeah,
you don't have a long commute.
yeah, no, 5-step commute basically. But yeah, like I said earlier, it's just the fact that you have that flexibility. So like, if I'm not working for even like 20 minutes, I can go do whatever I want at home. It's nice to have that flexibility. I will say though, since I'm a member of the DC bar, we do have the opportunity to use their office if we need to. So they actually have like a member connection suite is what it's called. Okay. Where they'll hook you up with like coffee and a secretary and whatever. So if you want to meet a client there, you can.
Okay. And Maryland doesn't have that? I'm not aware.
I don't think so. No.
Dang, man, Maryland's got stuff.
I know. Well, those bar dues, DC, a little higher.
Right, they are.
But yeah, and they even have like a conference room you can use. So if you want to hold an arbitration there, you definitely can.
Huh.
Yeah, definitely a good setup.
That's awesome. How else do you use technology in your firm?
So I mostly just leverage the basic stuff. Like I'm talking Microsoft Office.
Okay.
I don't have anything super fancy. I use a program called Harvest. It's a web-based application.
Okay.
I use that for invoicing only for very specific in-house clients, or I should say general counsel clients. And that's because I typically know what those clients are going to give me, like as far as workload goes, and it's very much the same set of like, let's say 20 items. And I know how long it's going to take and how much it's going to bill for. It's kind of just a streamlined way to create an invoice with those clients.
Okay. So that's Harvest. Do you use any other software to kind of make your life easier? I mean, it's all you right now, so you don't have a secretary like typing.
No, I've jerry-rigged a ton of stuff. So again, one of the first things I Googled was like, how can I code these Excel cells to make them like link to external documents I have? So when I need to do contracts, sometimes I'll have certain clauses set up in a bevy of Word documents I just have all over my computer. Super organized in folders, and the Excel file will just kind of pull them as needed whenever I need it. But yeah, a lot of jerry rigging. I think I'm really just trying to keep that overhead low, and I don't know when the right time is to really expand. I know a lot of people love practice management software, and I think that's great for a lot of fields. I just haven't found one that really speaks to anything I need. Like I haven't found any gaps.
Okay.
There's definitely been times where like I'm running myself crazy because like there's just so much going on, but it's never been to the breaking point where I'm like, all right, I need this software and it's gonna fix everything.
Right. This is a question I love asking. I'll attorneys that have started their own firm, but like what's like the 10-year, 20-year, 30-year goal?
Yeah.
Right?
10-year, 20-year, 30-year. Oh man, 30 years, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I first started off, honestly, the goal was just like, can I financially support myself? I, honestly, not even that. It was more like, can I win a case?
Okay.
Can I get some income coming in? That was really it. As it's grown, I think it's just, there's a part of me that wants to get to a point where I can automate a lot more things. And like, I've dabbled in that with like things like Zapier and stuff, but it's still not to a point where I can account for every single scenario. And I guess I learned after I created the law firm that I am way more of a control freak than I ever knew.
Dude.
Are you the same way?
You gotta like.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know how I can delegate a task to anyone, even like a robot. So,
I'm sorry. What is Zapier?
So Zapier is a tool, another web-based application where you can link a ton of different things. So like, let's say Google Drive to my Gmail,
Okay.
or Google Drive to Evernote, whatever it is, and you set up kind of commands like if-then statements. So it's like baby's version of coding, I guess.
Yeah.
And it'll create automated commands. So like, let's say, client send me an email with an attachment. Save that attachment to a Trello board or something like that. I don't know if you're familiar with Trello.
No.
So that's another web-based application. Just kind of a good way to keep workflow going. Kind of like, I know a lot of attorneys use Monday or Asana.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a good way to it's more like a task list.
Okay.
And you can really customize it, so I know people use it in crazy ways, but I'm really just using it like a task list from time to time.
Gotcha. Interesting.
That's also a great place I actually use to store notes in. So like I said, just take random notes of things you learned.
Mm-hmm.
So I have tons of categories. Like I'll have like patent law, and it just has random notes of like, if this instance happens, this is the like correct answer. Like it's very much plug and play. I definitely like to look at things like from a mathematical standpoint. So I'm always like, if the client comes in with this problem, what's the answer?
Gotcha. Dude, I love talking shop.
Yeah.
With attorneys that have started their own. One thing I've realized is, well, let me put it this way: you do have the flexibility in your time,
Mm-hmm.
right? But at a certain point, you want to have that flexibility while increasing your income.
Right.
While increasing your income.
Right.
So, at a certain point, it just becomes clear to me that like that control, you gotta like.
I know, and that's the 10-year plan. I'm like, I need to figure out some way to delegate this, whether it's to a person or a robot, and how I can either increase my income with doing even less work, or maintain some sort of stable income and have less work.
Right.
So that's really what the 10-year goal is income up.
Right.
Time spent
right.
actually doing the
For
work
everyone.
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess I want to say that when I say time spent doing the work, I don't necessarily mean the lawyering work, because that's the part I enjoy the most. It's more so, I don't want to be here having to like go through my ledger and like reconcile my IOLTA account, or put in like, I bought, these headphones for my podcast that I'm doing at the law firm, and now I got to expense these. So it's things like that where I'm like, I don't want to be stuck in the nitty gritty of that day-to-day stuff.
Dude, I'll tell you, I made two decisions. One is getting an accountant.
Yeah.
And that I don't worry about bookkeeping at all anymore, and just like realizing how much time it's saving me, and just headache. It's more than the time; it's the headache.
Yeah.
Like it's just I don't have to worry about it. And the second, for me at least, was an assistant. And I mean, when it comes to the admin stuff, you're buying back so much more of your time.
Yeah.
So.
The accounting thing is a great point, because so the first year of my law firm, I was like, you know what, I'm going to learn how to do taxes myself. That was another thing where I was like, I want to learn.
You can't.
No, you can't.
You
That's what I learned. Yeah. I was like, I want to learn every aspect of this firm, so if I do ever hire someone, I want to know exactly what it's like to do that job, and like how hard it is, what the pain points are, how I might be able to help.
Right.
So that first year, I tried doing it myself. I guess I succeeded, but I was just like, this is way too much work. It's not worth it. I don't even know if I'm getting the right benefits I should be getting from the tax code.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was the second year. I immediately was like, all right, I'm going to hire an accountant for this. And then what was the second thing you said? You said an assistant, right?
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, there's never a good time. There's never a good time. Because, like, all right, you started a business, and you're also a good drafty, just like me. So I get it. It's like, wait, what's their salary? Hold on. What's my salary? Like, you know what I mean? So I totally get it. But the way, the little bit of letting go and just realizing like, okay, well, how much does this cost for 3 months?
Right.
And when you break it down to that, it's like, all right, I can afford 3 months. If it doesn't work in 3 months, it's an at-will state, no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
But it's a probationary period.
Right. Yeah. 90-day probationary.
And I'm telling you, there's never a good time. Just do what you will. But my recommendation is just do it.
The assistant thing is really interesting because it's just going back to that control thing. And so because I'm so reluctant to do that, that's why I've jerry-rigged all these random Excel codes and things like that. So like I'll have, my bank statement being pulled into an Excel file that handles all of like the expenses for me. Even like booking clients, like I'll have a system where they can fill out a form on my website and it'll automatically populate into my calendar, things like that.
Gotcha.
It'll automatically send them an email that says like, oh yeah, you're booked, and then here's a little welcome packet with all the information you need. So like, there's so many things that are automated. They're just all jerry-rigged in such a way where it's like, I don't know if I could replicate this. Like, there's no way I could put together standard operating procedures for my firm if I were to like grow this to a 10-person firm. I feel like there's no standard operating procedure.
I gotcha. Well, dude, if it's working for you, which it clearly is, keep doing it. I'm just telling you what worked for me, man. Like,
no.
And obviously, we're always still learning, and that's the important part.
Is it too cheesy to say? That's why they always say you're practicing law.
That's cheesy, but I like it, man. I like it. You're always practicing. What is and again, you don't have to share, but a question that always comes up, and it's come up in my own mind. It's all over the internet. It's anybody you ask, right? Where do you get your clients from, right?
Yeah.
So how did you? I won't necessarily ask where you got your clients from, but like, you asked yourself that question, probably still do, because I know I still do.
Yeah.
And because you never know when the next one's going to walk in. You don't know, what's going to happen.
Right.
How did you kind of deal with that? When you started, like that anxiety, if you had any anxiety, like how did you deal with that?
Yeah. So I mean, originally I didn't have the anxiety because I got lucky to have that one client.
Mm-hmm.
But I do ask myself all the time, like, where am I getting these clients from? And I think the best thing is I'll ask them. Like, I think that's totally a reasonable question to ask. Like, hey, how did you hear about my firm?
Okay.
And people are always willing to share. I've never had anyone be like, that's a weird question. Why are you asking me that? I've noticed a lot of it has been just word of mouth.
Okay.
So construction industry super tight knit. Everyone like knows everyone. Like it's kind of a thing where it's like if you're a general contractor, you're like, well, that's my roofing guy. Like I have my one roofing guy. That's the guy. And,
Right.
you know, they're not out there getting quotes like a lot of homeowners do. You know, when you have a construction project.
Mm-hmm.
So I think once you really break into like one company, they're like, all right, we're always going back to the same lawyer.
That's awesome.
And then if they have a buddy at some other firm, like some other construction firm, they'll be like, hey, you know, I know this guy. He's my lawyer guy.
Right.
And so they'll refer it on.
It's your lawyer guy.
Yeah, that's what they say. I got a law guy.
Yeah. No, that's great.
But yeah, a lot of it's been word of mouth. I don't do any paid advertising at all.
Okay.
I have all like the social media accounts. I don't operate them like as much, and I think that's just kind of a time thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what I hire someone for, a social media assistant.
Yeah.
But yeah, earlier on, I think even if you look at like the law firm's social media, you'll see it was like way more active at the beginning when I'm like, I don't have that many cases.
Yeah.
And then, you know, as work ramped up, it's definitely taken a backseat.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just understandable.
And I think it also depends on who you're targeting. So, you know, if I'm targeting construction firms, they're not necessarily out there like on Instagram.
Right.
But I think, yeah, like for PI, you know, I'm sure that's a more lucrative area to spend your time in.
Yeah. So did you get? I mean, when you were active on or more active on social media, did you get hits?
I got hits. I want to say there were probably 2, 3 maybe clients that actually turned into something like fruitful.
Okay.
A lot of it was just kind of tire kickers, if you will.
Right. There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't know, in the PI world, actually, do you charge a consult fee just for initial consults, or is it all included?
No, it's all included.
Okay. So yeah, I've actually been dabbling with that of just because of these tire kickers. I've been kind of working with the idea. It depends on the type of case it is, but I'll say, so it's actually going to be a small fee to set up that consult. That way I can kind of weed out the people who are just looking for the free legal advice.
Right.
And really kind of get a client who's actually interested in hiring me.
Which makes sense because your clients are paying you, right?
Yeah.
Either flat fee or hourly,
Right.
and it's not the case for PI contingency.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
So, no, that's great. You know, it's always, and I stress this a lot with, you know, hopefully, you know, with this podcast and with, you know, whoever I talk to, all the lawyers, I'm like, the law is one thing, but you have to understand the money. You have to understand the way the money works. Like, if you understand the, you know, whether it's the billing structure or just, you work in a big law firm, small law firm, PI, whatever, plaintiff side, defense, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, how does the money work? If you understand how the money works and you get good at that, you'll be successful.
Yeah, and I think actually that's the appeal of flat fees as well, because I don't have to spend as much time or like focus on keeping track of the hourly billing.
Okay.
I'm just like, okay, I hit this stage, I earn that fee.
Awesome.
So that's definitely helped a ton, and that's why I'm just like, I'm leaning more and more towards it, but there's still a part of me where I'm like, I don't know if maybe I don't have enough years experience yet or what it is, but I can't properly think about what the flat fee would be for some, you know, whatever work that this is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think maybe in time, you know, if I get that experience, I move over to a strictly flat fee model. Maybe there's no hourly billing. As crazy as that probably sounds to a lot of attorneys, yeah, I could see myself moving into a strictly flat fee model.
I think it's great because there's transparency, you know?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Clients love it because when you set them up with a retainer with hourly billing, they're like, okay, it's this much money, but you need to refill that. And they're like, well, how many times am I refilling it?
Right.
What is this actually going to cost?
Right.
Flat fee is no upfront.
And it's what it incentivizes, you know? Like, hourly billing incentivizes slow legal work. Like,
100%. And that's what I noticed. Actually, I was speaking to a client. It was a patent minutes client about this recently. Because I guess maybe they weren't too familiar with lawyers, or I guess patent law. And so they were wondering why I was billing flat fee rather than hourly. And they were asking me, you know, how many billable hours would this take? And they were really just trying to get an idea of the hourly rate for some reason. So I guess, I don't know who they spoke with before. But I was really explaining, you know, you're paying for me to get the job done, and I'll get the job done. If you want me to take 80 hours to get your work done, even though I can get it done in 10, that's fine. I mean, I'll bill you for it if you really want me to, but I don't think it's a smart use of your money, and I don't think it's a smart use of my time.
right.
You're paying for the experience and someone's skill. So I think the flat fee really line up the attorney and the client where, all right, let's get this result the best way possible, the quickest way possible, rather than maybe I drag my feet a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't think most attorneys do drag their feet. I'm not saying they do. Even though I know there's a lot of lawyer jokes. I mean, it is a noble profession still, and like a couple bad apples who were like overbill, I don't think it sets the tone for who we are.
Right, absolutely. Have you ever fallen into the trap of, I guess I would label it as kind of a scarcity mindset, like, oh, let me reduce my fee and maybe I'll get more clients or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, I had a super low hourly rate because I'm like, I gotta look attractive, especially to like compare. Like, there's so many big firms, right? And I know they charge a lot, but they're also just, how am I supposed to justify going to me versus that if I'm priced even mildly close to their level, right? So yeah, earlier on, I priced myself super low, and I think it was just a couple years in where I was like, I should just try it, maybe with like this, because it was like a new year. I think I did it on like a January 1st or something. I decided I'm going to start upping the hourly rate a little bit. And then I was like, well, this is an interesting case. It's an interesting client. They are well established, so it's not like where I morally felt wrong doing it in terms of like, oh, this is a little guy who can't afford anything. So I was like, all right, let me present them with this hourly rate, or this hourly rate. And it worked out. I mean, they didn't care at all. They were like, okay, that's the rate, that's the rate. And I was like, man, I was stressing, like my stomach was in knots. I was like, he is not going to buy this. Look at this little kid over here trying to pitch this huge fee. Yeah. But I don't know. It worked out. I guess at least the clientele I serve, they aren't thinking about it as cautiously. So yeah, it's just been a matter of, all right, how much can I raise my rate enough? I think last year was actually the first year where I really kind of modeled a nice little financial model, I guess, trying to track like, okay, in theory, if I were to increase my fee this much, how many clients would I lose versus how many would I gain? I don't know. I have a friend, he's like a PhD in econ. I've been talking with him a lot about it, just like trying to develop some kind of model.
I was about to say, I can see your engineering analytical model like going out of control with that. That's amazing. I certainly don't.
Maybe you will in a few years.
Maybe I should. Yeah.
Definitely helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some, let's say, looking back, right? What are some, I don't want to say mistakes because I mean you're in a great spot, but like looking back, what would you have done differently?
What would I have done differently? Number one thing, I would have accepted credit cards a lot sooner.
Interesting. Okay.
So that was another thing where I'm like, I'm going to keep my overhead as low as possible, right?
Yeah.
And so the big one is LawPay. And they had, I think it was like a $10 or $20 per month fee. And I was like, I'm not taking that. Everyone's going to send me checks. And for the most part, they did. Because, I mean, construction clients, they don't care. They'll send out checks.
Right.
But again, I was still taking on like the random divorce case or an immigration case. And they were like, can I just pay online? And I'm like, no, you can't. And then I felt like I was turning away certain clients. So at some point, whatever it was just too much. And I was like, I'll just do it. I'll bite the bullet.
Do you accept Bitcoin?
I do not. Not yet. We'll see. Probably not anytime soon.
So accepting credit cards, I think that's great. It definitely just like reduces the friction of the entire.
Yeah, that's the thing too. And then, you obviously have to do this ethically and make sure like they understand what they're doing and sign a payment authorization form. But like, if someone is behind on payments or they don't refill that retainer, I mean, you can send them a note saying, hey, I am gonna bill your card that is on file, assuming they consented to that. Like you said, yeah, it reduces a lot of friction.
Yeah. What else? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can't say. I think I've only done that once ever, so it's not all too common to be honest. But like, yeah, it's good. It's a good tool, like if you need it.
Have you ever had a client decline the transaction?
I have not. I heard LawPay is really good about that though. If like
they are.
They are. Yeah.
That's all I'll say about that.
Okay.
But they do a great job.
Yeah, no chargebacks. Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah. What else besides credit card?
Another big mistake.
Yeah.
Oh man, I think don't sweat the little things, because I was over here being like, oh, my signature on my email doesn't have my law firm's logo on it. No one cares at all about that. I do have it now because like I finally figured that out for whatever reason. But yeah, sweating so many little things where like I'm driving myself insane. Like my armpits are sweating from this. I'm like, is this gonna make me look unprofessional? But yeah, because the thing is, even if you don't know that much or you think you don't know that much, you definitely know more than your client.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that in a way of like, yeah, trick them or screw them over. It's more so like you can help them. Even if you might not believe in yourself or think you can't, you probably can. There has to be some knowledge. I mean, you made it this far through law school. Probably passed the bar if you're watching this, maybe, maybe not. But yeah, you definitely know more than the average person. I'm sure you can help them.
Yeah, that's that imposter syndrome, man. And I can only imagine like dealing with large companies or like, like you must. I mean, maybe like you probably felt that like quite a bit.
So the other thing was, I made the connections, like I said, through I interned or worked under my grandfather in India a lot, and so they were used to him, right? And so when they would come with me with definitely much smaller things at the beginning, but still like these fairly large companies in India contacting me, I was like, oh man, I gotta live up to this person's shoes, and like I gotta fill this person's shoes. So that was definitely tough. I don't really know how I got by it. It was just a lot of support from loved ones around me, but yeah, you'll get over it at some point, or I think you don't, and you just continue that way, which is fine too. I mean, like I'm still questioning things day to day where I'm like, all right, this is a very different type of patent. Is this something I really think I know what I'm doing in? Like I'm not out here like patenting pharmaceuticals, but like let's say a pharmaceutical company approached me, I'm like, is this really something I can do? I don't know. And the chances are like, I bet I could get somewhat close. It's probably not a case I'll take on because it's not my area of expertise. But like, the thing is you have to know that you do know more than you think you do.
Absolutely. On that note, Suraj, thank you very much. This has been great.
Thank you so much for having me.